Greetings. Thank you for tuning in to this 2020 Primary Election Candidate Forum for Thurston County Superior Court, position number 8. The forum is presented by the League of Women Voters of Thurston County, along with Thurston Community Media, TCM. This forum is being held electronically due to COVID-19. Candidates, moderators, and timers are all joining in on Zoom links with the help of TCM. A bit about the League. The League is a nonprofit organization that encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in their government. The League neither supports nor opposes candidates or parties. We are nonpartisan. The League registers new voters, studies issues, and advocates for its positions with the legislature and other new voters, and other governmental bodies. Despite its name, the League is open to all people aged 16 and up. I'm Susan Fixdahl from the League, and I'll be moderating this forum. A timer will show you a sign when you have 30 seconds left, and then again when you need to stop. If you are on the phone, well, no one's on the phone. Okay. The candidates for this position are Scott Ahlf, Sharonda Amamilo, David Hankins, and Jonathan Sprouffske. For this forum, candidates will each have 1 minute to respond to a question about qualifications, followed by a series of questions in alternating order and ending with 1 minute closing statements. The first question is, why are you the most qualified candidate for this position? Beginning with Scott Ahlf and followed by Sharonda Amamilo, David Hankins, and Jonathan Sprouffske, each candidate will have 1 minute to respond. Scott?
Thank you. Yes, I'm qualified for this position. I've been the Olympia Municipal Court judge for the last 15 years. I've been able to take into consideration all people that appear in front of me. I'm able to make decisions, tough decisions, and I've had to do that over the years. And I'm excited to move on to the Superior Court, where I can take that experience, and as the only candidate on this forum that has significant judicial experience, I'm the one that needs to be elected to this position. I understand the others are here, but I understand they are quality people, but I am the best qualified candidate for this position.
Thank you. Sharonda Amamilo.
Thank you very much for having me here, and thank you to the voters who are interested in this process. I'm Sharonda Amamilo, and I've been a trial attorney for the last 17 years, and I'm qualified for this position because I have lived experiences that bring a diversity of experiences to the bench. I've been representing individuals, families, and youth in the courts of Thurston County for the past 13, 14 years straight. And I believe that bringing those different voices of my lived experiences to the court will assist the court reaching its goals of equity and justice for all. Thank you.
David Hankins.
Thank you. I'm David Hankins, and I'm running for Thurston County Superior Court. And my experience is that I'm the only one that has had over 30 years of trial experience for this position. I'm an assistant attorney general and a managing AAG, and I've experienced and practiced in all forums in federal court and the appellate courts, and have done extensive complex constitutional law that the other candidates have not. And that's why I think my experience and my commitment to ethics and training the new attorneys for the Attorney General's office brings me the most qualified for this position. Thank you.
And Jonathan Sprouffske.
Thank you, Susan. We expect judges to be fair and knowledgeable and respected members of our community who are familiar with all aspects of the law and bring a diverse set of professional experiences to the job. I've spent my entire legal career in Thurston County, helping citizens achieve fair and balanced outcomes. I am currently an attorney and partner with Conley Tacon and Meserve, located in downtown Olympia. I've previously served as Judge Pro Tem in Thurston County District Court, and I'm currently serving as Commissioner Pro Tem in Thurston County Superior Court. I've also had the privilege of serving as an arbitrator for the Thurston County Superior Court Mandatory Arbitration Panel, where I've been tasked with serving as the fact finder for a wide variety of cases. I believe that this diverse experience makes me qualified to serve as your next Thurston County Superior Court judge. Thank you.
Thank you. For the following questions, the first respondent will have 2 minutes and subsequent candidates will have 1 minute to respond. We will rotate questions to candidates so that first responses are rotated also. The first question then is, the Thurston County Vision Statement provides in part that, quote, the court seeks community input to ensure public confidence in the judiciary and to reflect diverse community needs. What does this mean to you, and how would you act upon it? Our first respondent will be Scott Ahlf.
Thank you. I've spent my career working with community on different aspects of my job. I created a community court in the city of Olympia, which is used throughout the nation as a model for other courts to use. And to do so, we brought in a number of stakeholders from throughout the community to create that program and that process. With that process, not only do we bring in the individuals who are involved with the court system, we've also brought in chemical dependency treatment providers, mental health treatment providers, and housing advocates. We have up to 17 or 18 different providers that come every Wednesday morning for our community court to work with us so that we can work to get the individual to where they need to be. And with that community court, we work with the process that we want to make sure that we're treating the individual.
Cannot hear him.
So we want to make sure that we're treating the individual and not, and Ms. Amamilo is speaking while I'm trying to speak here, but we do want to make sure that we're treating individuals and not numbers. And so when people come to our court, we want to make sure that we can go forward with their lives and change the lives that they've been involved with. And so bringing the community together to work on those things is very important.
Thank you. Sharonda Amamilo.
Thank you. Apologies to the team here. I could not hear Scott for a moment there. And but that has been corrected now. I can hear him just fine. As it relates to the question of working with community, in my 17 years of working in Thurston County as a member, 12 of those years being a member of the Thurston County Public Defender's Office, until this past September, I worked with different law and justice stakeholders within and without the Thurston County Superior Court system. In that time frame, we developed the Juvenile Justice Behavioral Health Alternative, which is a therapeutic court for juveniles. We attempted to develop a justice program alternative for girls because we know the delinquency system was originally made for boys, and we tried to work with the Children for Youth and Justice. I also was a very strong member of the team that developed the Family Recovery Court, which works with families in child welfare cases. And for the past 5 years, I oversaw the defense of those programs for the Thurston County Public Defender's Office as its juvenile and dependency supervisor. Thank you.
Thank you. David Hankins.
Yes, thank you. What that question and the diversity means to me is that you want to make sure that you have someone in that position that understands and can apply the various issues that come before the court and can do that, and also treat those folks that come before the court with fairness and impartiality. And that is what I think I can bring to being a Superior Court judge, and I think that's what it means to be diverse. Thank you.
Thank you. Jonathan Sprouffske.
Thank you. I mean, ultimately, our court system must be accessible and work for the greater community good. If you ask anyone involved with the Thurston County Superior Court system, you'll find that over the last few months, we've shown that we must rethink the traditional court model. The shutdown due to COVID-19 will drastically create a backlog, the likes of which will still exist when the successful candidate of this race is appointed. We must make sure that we're available and ready to serve not only a fast-paced and limber court system, but also think of non-traditional ways to support our community by partnering with other public and private partnerships to make sure that access to justice continues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll go on to the next question. The Superior Court operates 2 treatment courts, DUI Drug Court and Family Recovery Court. What is your understanding of these 2 courts? Sharonda Amamilo, could you respond first?
I'll start with the DUI drug court. And it's also similar to the Veterans Court that we have there in our district court system. And then if you're asking about just the Superior Court system, they also have the Adult Drug Court, which is a comprehensive court a multidisciplinary team of behavioral health professionals, prosecutors, and defense attorneys who have a very strict format for delivering accountability and opportunity to rehabilitate so that people can be sustained in the community, overcome their addictions. And so I'm very familiar with how that model works. I'm very familiar with the screening process and all that entails as it relates to the Family Recovery Court. As I indicated in my last reply, I was part of the development of that Family Recovery Court alongside Judge Ann Hirsch in developing that program that gives the opportunity for people to be in a very structured system so that they have the ability to have the behavioral health, the chemical dependency, the mental health, and others housing and life supportive type support that they need to assist them in being able to successfully parent their children. And so I'm very familiar with how that works and the screening process and the accountability processes that go along with both of those court programs. And they are, I would say, more of that is needed, and they are very successful and effective in how they help people change their lives.
Thank you. Hankins?
I was going to say everything Sharonda was going to say. No, I think her answer was very comprehensive. And what I know about those programs is the fact that they're an alternative to making sure that people get help. And that's what we need. We need to rethink on how we do our judicial system and coming up with programs that can assist people. And that's the best we can do. Thank you.
Perhaps I could follow up. Are there other treatment courts that you can imagine?
Yes, besides the mental health that we've talked about, there's the veterans that we've talked about. Besides that, and the alternative dispute resolution programs, those are the ones I think that come to mind.
Thank you very much. Jonathan Sprouffske?
It's hard to disagree with both of the prior two, but as I mentioned in my prior answer, I really believe we have to look at alternative programs if the court is going to be successful in digging out from the backlog that is now being created. Both the Veterans Court at the district court level, I would love to see that program expanded to the Superior Court model. I've had several clients that have gone through that process, a couple very successfully, and it's so great to see the impact that court, by listening to people where they're at, meeting them where they're at, and then helping to work through all of the issues surrounding their case, as opposed to just focusing on the legal issues, really makes a big difference. It does a great job, not only for the individual, but also for the community as a whole. And so I would wholeheartedly endorse expanding those programs.
Thank you. And Scott Ahlf?
Yes, not only am I aware of those programs, I've trained many people on the use of therapeutic courts. I've presented at conferences nationwide and statewide on the use of therapeutic courts. I've been involved with creating a therapeutic court system in Olympia that I said is a mentor court, and we're one of 5 mentor courts in the country. And so I'm very aware of those, and I'm very passionate about therapeutic courts. In fact, my community court is my pride and joy. We try to make sure that we treat each individual that comes into the community court as an individual. And so when they come into court, I ask the first thing I tell them is that I don't care what you're charged with. What I care about is what got you to this point in your life and what we can do to get you to where you want to be in the future. And so that's how we've done it. And that's how I do it. And that's how I will do it in Superior Court.
Thank you. We'll move on to our next question. What measures should we track to ensure that people of color are treated equitably by law enforcement and in the county judicial system? David Hankins, could you respond first? And you will have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Well, clearly we're seeing a recognition that there is a lack of confidence and integrity in our institutions. And I think in order to solve that problem, you really need to have someone with the criteria of having experience on the bench and experience in handling the complex cases that come before Thurston County. And then secondly, you need to have someone to institute and be an ethical advocate and fairness for all those that come before the court. And I think with those kind of institutions where I have been actively involved in making sure through our office, make sure that everyone goes through numbers of training for implicit bias, racial discrimination, and that kind of training is important that we can help to put through our institutions and make sure that those are racism and those that are coming before the court are treated fairly and equally. And I think I can do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Jonathan Sprouffske?
Sure. I believe the question is focused on numbers, and I love numbers, and I'm always a huge statistics guy. And I think really we need to look at all the numbers. We need to look at the number of training hours allocated to judicial officers, court staff, everyone involving implicit bias, as well as just access to justice as a whole. It's not just whether a bias takes effect. It's also just the access to the court system. People are treated differently when they enter the courts. I think we're finally seeing that as a national movement, but it shouldn't be that way. And our hope is that it's not that way in the future. But number wise, look at that. Look at the number of the sentencing ranges for people not only of color, but also non-color individuals. You also look at individuals, the number of delays in cases. How many times is a case set over for another review versus a right to speedy trial? I think you have to look at all the numbers. And I'll constantly evaluate what we do, how we make decisions, and whether or not we are biasing the system in any way. Thank you.
Scott Ahlf?
We always have to take into consideration the results of the things that we do. In fact, we run tests on everything that we do, and we want to come back and make sure we have that proper data. Once again, I continue to talk about the community court in Olympia, but our recidivism rate is people have a recidivism rate of about 45 to 50% in criminal matters. In our community court, we have a recidivism rate of 15% for our graduates. And so we do want to make sure that we're keeping track of those numbers. We want to make sure that we're keeping track of the people that appear in front of us and that they're all treated fairly and impartially. And I've strived to do that over my career.
Thank you. And Sharonda Amamilo?
Thank you very much. Good intentions would have us all believe that we are always operating in the best interest of everyone in front of us. But that's where data is important. And I completely agree with Jonathan on this issue, is that if you're not measuring by numbers, you're not keeping track of the data, then you could be engaging in unintentional discrimination. And so collaborating with all the other departments. I've worked closely with Mike Fenton, for example, the juvenile court administrator, in tracking data that demonstrated that minority boys, Black boys, were being charged and or receiving recommendations for detention at a higher rate for whatever reason. And we've seen that in all the data. You look at the administrative office of the courts, you can go to the Vera Institute for data on Thurston County specifically to see what the jail population is. So when you're looking at working with the prosecution, working with probation, working with all the elements of components of the court system is important.
Thank you. We'll go on to the next question. Is it appropriate to impose more restrictions on what cases go to trial? Is there a need for more mandatory mediation and settlement efforts? Jonathan Sprouffske, could you respond first?
Absolutely. I think the mandatory arbitration panel, which I serve on, is a great tool. The problem is even though there's a deadline imposed by which the cases are supposed to be heard, oftentimes that just simply doesn't happen. And I think, the purpose of mandatory arbitration and mandatory mediation programs throughout the state are really focused on the idea of getting a quick look so parties aren't spending a ton of money on discovery. Yet over and over we hear when cases are waiting for arbitration, well, we can't go to arbitration yet. We need more discovery. And it just defeats the entire purpose. We must be quicker at processing these cases, and that's one tool that can help. And I don't say quicker, because ultimately we want to get it right. Ultimately, that's the most important factor. But oftentimes, I think every attorney on this Zoom will agree with me, things don't always happen in the legal universe without a deadline. And those mandatory arbitration cases, those mediation dates, those dates of a court hearing, without those dates, sometimes there's not much movement on those cases. And so those dates help to serve in pushing those cases forward so that justice is ultimately served. And so we must further embrace those mandatory arbitration programs, those other specialty mediation programs, We have a great resource here in Thurston County with the Thurston County Dispute Resolution Center that acts often in district court. And I'd love to find a way to have organizations like that be more involved in the Superior Court process like they are in Pierce County. Thank you.
Scott, Al?
Sure. Alternative dispute resolution is very important and something that we need to make sure that we continue to be involved with, and to give people an opportunity to come together and make some decisions that may not get to the full court decision. You know, making the judge make the final decision. Jonathan said that he's worked as a pro tem judge in Thurston County. I've also done that in the small claims court there. And when we've done that in the past, we have the alternative dispute resolution to have people meet together before they come together and let the judge make the decision. Because ultimately, when the judge makes the decision, there's always going to be a winner and a loser, and most of the time there's most likely going to be two losers, because nobody's actually going to get everything that they want. And so to work together and to have those programs is very important.
Thank you. Sharonda Amamilo?
Thank you. And like my colleagues here, I'm also fully trained in the dispute resolution process. And I've used that throughout my career to facilitate working with either stakeholders or clients and or other parties in the court system. Superior Court system is where my career has been. The thing about arbitration and mediation, it gives ownership to the parties to try and resolve these cases at the lowest level possible in a way that's as least adversarial as possible. As my colleagues have said, saving a lot of money, saving a lot of heartache, saving a lot of time. And so I think it's really important that if things are not able to be resolved in arbitration mediation, that the judge is ready, which I will be ready, to resolve the disputes and give some finality to all the parties. Thank you.
Thank you. Hankins?
Yes, thank you. I think in your question, you were asking if there were more cases that could be sent to the alternative dispute resolution. Clearly, the alternative dispute resolution program is a very important avenue. But in Thurston County, as the state seat, there are a number of cases that come before the court that you have to have the judge render a decision. So they would not be appropriate for alternative dispute resolution, such as ballot title challenges. And those type of cases are the type of cases that you need the judge to make a decision. So those wouldn't be appropriate to expand into a mediation type program or an alternative dispute resolution program. Both those are important, but there are certain cases that you ultimately have to have a judge decide those cases and that law.
What would you do if you had to master an unfamiliar area of the law in a short period of time? Scott Ahlf, could you respond first? And you have 2 minutes.
Sure. And part of being a judge and part of being a lawyer is doing legal research. I had to do that throughout my career. And when you come to an issue of first impression, you have to make sure that you are taking proper time to review all the case law and statutes, court rules, everything that becomes involved with the case. And so I've spent that time. I've had to do that many times over the years and have to make decisions. And as a judge, you have the lawyers present their argument as to each case and as to the facts of the case, as to the law that's presented to the judge. And ultimately, the judge has to make that decision. So there's a lot of reading involved. There's a lot of legal research that's done. And, you know, David was making a comment about being able to make decisions. And I've had to do that for the last 15 years. And so you make those decisions based on facts and the law and the Constitution. And so I continue to do that. And that's how I've done it. And that's how I'll continue to do it on the Superior Court.
Thank you. Sharonda Amamilo?
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. What would you do if you had to master an unfamiliar area of the law in a short period of time?
Thank you very much. As you can tell from this panel of candidates, everyone has a diverse background. And so no one is going to ascend to the bench knowing everything about every scope of practice or every type of case that comes. So for those areas where I am not as experienced as others might be, I adopt everything that Scott said about how you approach it. But as well, we have a very, very competent bench with a lot of experience in different areas that gives the incoming freshman judicial officer a wealth of knowledge and access. And so for the complex civil litigation, I have a number of AGs that are already former AGs that are already sitting on the bench. And I assure you that after consulting with them, they have a very well-developed mentorship program for incoming judicial officers. So along with the research, along with the attorneys during following briefing schedules, and along with my colleagues, I will be ready. Thank you.
Thank you. David Hankins?
Yes, I think what we all do is that when we have these cases that come up that we need to do a crash course, we all hit the books and we hit our computers and get onto Westlaw. And so it's doing that type of work that we're used to, all of us actually, in a short amount of time, and reaching out to your colleagues and reaching out to those that are on the bench. And that's what I think all of us would do in order to get all of that information and ready and prepared for the trial that's coming up.
Thank you. And Jonathan Sprouffske? Sorry.
Sure. I mean, the first thing I do is be excited, I think. The fact is, for all four of us that are running for this position, we have fairly stable practices. And so it's exciting when each of us gets to do new and novel things. And so I think we'd all be excited and up for the challenge. I do think that's one part of why I am excited to fill this role, is that my practice has been pretty diverse as far as practice areas. And I bring a lot of experience that the current bench does not, including creditor and debtor relations, real estate, business law. And I feel like I could be as helpful to them answering some of their background questions as they could be to me with some other topics, especially those members of the bench that are from the AG's office.
Okay, thank you very much. We're now moving to the closing statement. You each have 1 minute to give a closing statement. In that statement, please explain your judicial philosophy and your biggest judicial influence. We will begin in reverse order from the very beginning. So Jonathan Sprouffske, you're first. 1 minute.
Right, thank you. Well, I've spent my entire legal career in Thurston County, but I've also served more than 20 years with the Southeast Thurston Regional Fire Authority, first as a volunteer firefighter EMT, and now as chair of their board, where I've worked to create a more responsive and efficient public agency. I value my connections through the community, and I have the diverse background necessary to serve as your next Thurston County Superior Court judge. I've had the privilege of serving under many of our former Thurston County Superior Court judges, including Judge McPhee and Judge Bershauer, who I really look up to and aspire to be as prepared as Judge McPhee was and as thoughtful and responsive as Judge Bershauer was. I think both of them have really guided a lot of my practice throughout the years, both McPhee as a judge and Bershauer as the mediator for many of my cases. We need judges who have experience working under pressure and directly with clients, who understand courtroom decisions impact the lives and livelihood of people in our community. And I look forward to doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. David Hankins.
Yes, thank you. Well, like Jonathan, I have practiced here for over 30 years, and I've raised my family here and been in Thurston County for a number of years, and have been protecting the people of this state for that length of time. And that's why I have the experience in my judicial philosophy of treating everyone fairly and impartially, and being the one to handle the complex constitutional issues that come before the court. And that's why the former governor of our state, Chris Gregoire, and both the Attorney General of current and past have endorsed me, including Chief Justice Fairhurst and the Court of Appeals Judge Rebecca Glasgow, all showing that they have the confidence and faith that I can handle those kind of cases that come before the court and treat those folks with fairness and impartiality. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharonda Amamilo.
Thank you. My judicial philosophy is rooted in 3 principles, and that is equity, community, and justice. For my entire 17-year career, I have always sought to ensure that people had a fair opportunity to be successful when they come into court. And by success, I don't mean always winning their case, but to be successfully heard, to have their cases heard on the merits, and to ensure that I do my level best to ensure that their judge can be fair and equitable, and that they can understand the outcome. And in that way, I've worked really hard to work with outside and inside stakeholders by my work volunteering with Community Youth Services, CYS of Olympia, and my work volunteering with Washington Trafficking Prevention to bring justice for all, no matter where they are in our society. And I think it's very important that different voices are at the table when decisions are being made as we go forward in transitioning and reforming our justice system. What all of the candidates talked about different things that are helpful for the system. I will bring a voice that can inform that. Thank you.
Thank you. And Scott Ahlf?
Thank you. You know, fair and impartial is the most important thing that you can be as a judge. And I've had a lot of experience as that judge, and I've had a lot of experience in Thurston County. I was born and raised here. My dad was the city attorney in Lacey for 43 years. I've been involved a long time with the criminal justice system in the state of Washington, as well as the court system. I've been the president of the District and Municipal Court Judges Association. I'm currently co-chairing the COVID-19 Recovery Task Force with Chief Justice Stevens and Superior Court Judges Association president. Kip Stills is a judge that really got to me when I was a young lawyer and got me thinking. And he started the Thurston County Mental Health Court, and I was involved with that. And that's what got me to start the community court in Olympia, and continue to work that way, and want to make sure that everybody that comes in front of my court is treated fairly and understand that their concerns are being heard and that they're being listened to. Thank you, and I appreciate it.
Thank you for participating in this forum, and thank you to Thurston Community Media for coordinating that forum using Zoom. The forum will be available on TCM channels, on the League website, and through YouTube shortly after the forums are concluded. We're glad to have taken the opportunity to view this forum. We remind you to vote in the primary election beginning July 17th and closing on August 4th, 2020.